Hi, everybody. It's Graham reading again here at Redeemer United Methodist Church in Harper Woods. Today's story is Why Christmas Trees Aren't Perfect. It's written by Richard H. Snyder and illustrated by Elizabeth J. Miles. They say that if you creep into an evergreen forest late at night, you can hear the trees talking. If you listen very carefully to the whisper of the wind, you can hear the older pines telling the younger pines why they will never be perfect. They will always have a bent branch here, a gap there, but long, long ago, all evergreen trees were perfect. Each one took special pride in its branches that sloped smoothly down from the pointed top to an evenly shaped skirt. This was especially true in a small kingdom beyond the Carpathian Mountains in Europe. Here, the evergreen trees were the most beautiful of all, for here the sun shone just right, not too hot, not too dim. Here, the rain fell enough to keep the ground moist and soft so that no tree went thirsty, and here the snow fell gently day after day to keep every branch fresh and green. Each year, as Christmas time approached, the Queen's woodsmen would search the royal evergreen mountains and forests for the most perfect, most beautiful tree. The one fortunate enough to be chosen would be cut on the first Saturday of Advent. It would then be carefully carried to the castle and set up in the center of the great hall. There, it reigned in honor for all the Christmas celebrations. Out of the hushed forest, every evergreen hoped for this honor. Each tree tried to grow its branches and needles to perfection. All of them strained to have the best form and appearance. One tree, small pine, grew near the edge of the forest and promised to be the most beautiful of all. As a seedling, it had listened carefully to the older trees who knew what was best for the young saplings. It had tried very hard to grow just right. As a result, everything about small pine, from its deep green, sea green color to the curling tips of its evenly spaced branches, was perfect. In fact, it had already heard jealous whispers from the other trees, but it paid them no mind. Small pine knew that if one did one's very best, what everyone else said didn't matter. One cold night, when the bright moon glittered on the crusty snow, a little rabbit came hopping as fast as it could into the grove of the evergreens. The rabbit's furry sides heaved in panic. From beyond the hill came the howling of wild dogs in the thrill of the hunt. The bunny, his eyes wide with fright and frantically searching for cover. But the dark, cold trees lifted their branches artfully from the snow and frowned. They did not like this interruption of their quiet evening when they were growing. Faster and faster the rabbit circled as the excited howling of the dogs sounded louder. And then Small Pine's heart shuddered. When the terrified rabbit ran near, Small Pine dipped its lower branches down to the snow, and in that instant, before the dogs could break into the grove, the rabbit slipped under Small Pine's evergreen screen. He huddled safely among the comforting branches while the dogs galloped by and disappeared into the forest. In the morning, the rabbit went home to his burrow, and Small Pine tried to lift its lower branches back to their proper height. It strained and struggled, but the branches had been pressed down too long through the night. Oh well, Small Pine thought, no matter. Perhaps the woodsman wouldn't notice a few uneven branches near the ground in a tree so beautiful. Several days later, a terrible blizzard lashed the land. No one remembered ever having so much wind and snow. Villagers slammed their shutters tight while birds and animals huddled in their nests and den. A brown mother wren had become lost in the storm. With feathers so wet she could barely fly. She went from one large evergreen to another looking for shelter. But each tree she approached feared the wren would ruin its perfect shape and clenched its branches tight like a fist. Finally, the exhausted wren fluttered toward Small Pine. Once more, Small Pine's heart opened, and so did its branches. The mother wren nestled on a branch near the top, secure at last. But when the storm ended and the bird had flown away, Small Pine could not move its top branches back to their perfect shape. In them would be a gap forever. Days passed and winter deepened. The packed snow had frozen so hard that the deer in the forest could not reach the tender ground moss that they ate to survive. Only the older, stronger deer could dig through the icy snow with their hoofs. One little fawn had wandered away from his mother. Now he was starving. He inched into the pine grove and noticed the soft, tender evergreen tips. He tried to nibble on them, but every tree quickly withdrew its branches so the tiny deer teeth couldn't chew them. Thin and weak, he staggered against Small Pine. Pity filled the tree's heart, and it stretched out its soft needles for the starving fawn to eat. But, alas, when the deer was strong enough to scamper away, Small Pine's branches looked very ragged. Small Pine wilted in sorrow. It could hear the larger, still perfect trees saying how bad he looked. A tear of pine gum oozed from the tip of his branch. Small Pine knew it could never hope to have the honor of being the Queen's Christmas tree. Lost in despair, Small Pine did not see the good Queen come with the woodsmen into the forest. It was the first Saturday of Advent, and she had come to choose the finest tree herself because this was a special celebration in the history of her kingdom. As the royal sleigh drawn by two white horses, slowly passed through the forest, her careful eyes scanned the evergreens. Each one was hoping to be the royal choice. When the Queen saw Small Pine, a flush of anger filled her. How could such an ugly tree with so many drooping branches and gaps be allowed in the royal forest? She decided to have a woodsman cut it and throw it away, and nodded for the sleigh to drive on. But then she raised her hand for the sleigh to stop and glanced back at the forlorn little pine. She noticed the tracks of animals under its uneven needles. She saw a wren's feather caught in its branches, and as she studied the gaping hole in its side and its ragged shape, understanding filled her heart. "This is the one," she said, and pointed to Small Pine. The woodsmen gasped, but they did as the Queen directed. To the astonishment of all the evergreens in the forest, Small Pine was carried away to the great hall in the castle. There it was decorated with shimmering silver stars and golden angels, which sparkled and flashed in the light of 1,000 glowing candles. On Christmas Day, a huge Yule log blazed in the fireplace at the end of the great hall. While orange flames chuckled and crackled, the Queen's family and all the villagers danced and sang together around the Small Pine. And everyone who danced and sang until it was that Small Pine, and everyone who danced and sang around said that Small Pine was the finest Christmas tree yet. For in looking at its drooping, nibbled branches, they saw the protecting arms of their father or the comforting lap of a mother. And some, like the wise Queen, saw the love of Christ expressed on earth. So, if you walk among the evergreens today, you will find, along with rabbits, birds, and others happy living things, many trees like Small Pine. You will see a drooping limb which gives cover, a gap offering a warm resting place, or branches ragged from feeding hungry animals. For, as many of us, the trees have learned that living for the sake of others makes us more beautiful in the eyes of God. I hope you enjoyed that story. The end.